with you on is really around what are the rules you live by. Now, all of us on here are believers, we're Christians. I assume, yes, we all are. We all believe in God and have a relationship with Him. And that decision that we've made sets a set of rules or guidelines that inform how we show up and how we live our life. But what I want you to think about are what are the other rules that govern your life? And I want us to kind of workshop this in real time. And you can put some in the chat. You can shout them out to me. I want us to come up with 3 to 5 core principles, core rules that govern how we will move through life. And I've been wrestling with this today, and I've been thinking about it myself because ultimately, James Clear says you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And on some level, those systems that we fall to, it has a lot to do with the rules and the principles that are at the core. Some people might call this your value system, right? So what are your values? But I don't want to frame it like values right now. I want to frame it like rules, right? So what are those rules? And I want you to think about them in light of as it pertains to you accelerating progress in your life, as it pertains to you accelerating clarity, accelerating momentum, moving forward, accomplishing the things that God has put in your heart to accomplish. What are the rules? And I'm going to write them up here. The rules that we'll just call it rules. My handwriting is like so suspect. Rules that govern. What are the rules? The rules that govern is what we want to call it. The rules that govern your life. And so I'll give you an example of one. So one is that and this is something I had a session with my coach this week, and he challenged me on this. And so that's why it really got me thinking about it and why I wanted to bring it to you. One was that let me write it in a different color. I will complete, no, I don't want it to be that thick. Different color. I will complete 100% of my commitments. This is an example of a rule that you almost are like entering into a contract with yourself. You're entering into a contract with your future self. And you're saying to yourself, hey, here's a rule, here's a principle, here's a piece of my contract with myself that I am going to uphold and live by and subscribe to. And so one that I've been challenged by this week is I will complete 100% of the commitments I make. I will complete 100% of my commitments. Now, the operative word here is commitments. Specifically saying that if I commit to it, I will complete it. Now, this goes back to our execution measurement score and our execution measurement system. But this could be an example of a governing rule, a rule that governs your life. That if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And Ed, to your point, that's what integrity looks like. Integrity looks like I'm going to keep 100% of my commitments. If I say I'm going to do it, it's done. Another way of thinking about this is I will do what you say you will do. DWYSYWD. Do what you say you will do.
Daddy,
Yes.
where's my Alexa?
I'll have to get it for you.
Where is it?
I'll get it. Thoughts? Starts here. So In addition to this, I mean, this is one example. I'm throwing this up there as like just to get the juices flowing. Like what could be some others separate from this, in addition to this, that you would want to make to yourself? What does that mean? You commit to growing with people. What does that mean? Okay. 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 So what I hear you saying, and I'm gonna phrase it a little bit differently, but it's basically the same thing. As I hear you saying that I hear you saying, so we'll just put a one there. I hear you saying, I will not I will not eat alone. I heard Oprah say this once. I think it was Oprah. And she was like, never go to lunch by yourself. And I think the principle was always do something with someone, connect, pour into, learn from, build relationships. Now, that can be taken to an extreme. There's nothing wrong with doing, going to lunch by yourself if you just need a moment. But I think the broader principle, what I hear you saying is, hey, I'm gonna do life with people in community, and I'm gonna force myself into these relationships and into proximity with people that I can learn from, grow from, and that I can also pour into and help support. Yeah. Excellent. What else? What's another one? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 So that's like a giving back, right? That's like, hey, I will dedicate time to give back to individuals who are coming up maybe through similar situations that I've overcome and that I've come through, and I'm going to give back and pour into them, right? Excellent. Another one, I'll give you another example. Another example is I will stay, and then let me write it like a I will. I will stay in the gain, not the gap. Are y'all familiar with the gap and the gain? Have you heard of that terminology before? It's a book written by, I have it somewhere around here. It's a book written by Benjamin Hardy. It's called The Gap and the Gain. And basically, what he's essentially saying is if this is you, if you're standing here, right, and your goal is to get up here, there's a gap between you and your goal. And a lot of people live in the gap. This is the gap. And they say to themselves, well, look how far I have to go. My goal is so far away. And you're living in the gap. You're basically living in lack, right? Because you're comparing where you are to where you want to be. And what he suggests is you need to live in the gain. The gain is always in comparison to where you once were. So I was over here, but now I am here. So my current position is the gain. I have gained ground, and so I will live within the gain, basically embracing, rather than embracing lack, it is embracing gratitude and perspective for where you are in light of where you've been. And so we're saying, hey, I know I still have a ways to go, but I'm not going to live my life in this gap over here, right? I'm going to live my life thinking about where I have come from, where I have arrived with an extreme amount of gratitude. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine this week, and we were kind of reflecting on this because it's very easy for us to live in the gap. And so this rule that governs says, I will stay in the gain, not in the gap. Every day when I wake up, I will look around and just be grateful and have gratitude for from where I've come from, for what I've accomplished, for the successes that I've had. And while I am still striving towards something, I'm not going to allow myself to fall in the gap between where I am and where I want to be. I'm going to live in the gain, which is basically a perspective of gratitude for where I have arrived based off of where I've come from. Right? Makes sense? Thoughts? Right? So I'm just throwing out ideas, right? Another rule, that's number 3. Number 4, I will seek feedback relentlessly. This is a rule that governs. So now I'm saying, okay, as I'm going through life, I refuse to have my head in the sand like an ostrich, right? Assuming drinking my own Kool-Aid, smelling myself. I'm going to constantly seek feedback, recognizing that growth comes from perspective, not from perfection. Growth comes from perspective, not perfection. So I will ask people, what could I have done better? What are the areas that I could have improved? What went well? What didn't go well? I will also separate my identity from my performance, right? Because the only reason why we don't want feedback is because we've coupled our identity and performance together. But I will decouple my identity from performance so that now when someone gives me feedback, it doesn't sting because it's not necessarily a blow against how I see myself. It's simply feedback on what I did so that I can improve and do it better in the future. Make sense? You see where we're going here? So these are different than values. I mean, you might say, hey, my values for life are, I value family, I value community, I value, solitude and prayer. I value, these different elements, right? These are different than values. These are saying, hey, like, these are the rules that will govern my life. Case in point, gravity is a rule that governs your life, right? It is with you everywhere you go. You cannot escape it. Now, you can build systems that can minimize it, i.e. airplanes and combustion engines and rockets. It minimizes the effect of gravity on you, but everything is still oriented around gravity. So what I'm saying is, let's identify 3 or 4 rules that will govern how we move through life as it relates to the pursuit of our goals. I'm not talking about how it relates to, you and your spouse or your kids or your family or your friends. I'm talking about as it relates to you actually accomplishing the things that you said you were going to accomplish. Another one, I'll give you one more, and then I want to hear from you all. Another one, fear is a compass. Yeah, in just a minute. What does this mean? Fear is a compass. I will run toward what scares me. Because what scares me, generally speaking, I'm not talking about, placing yourself in hurt, harm, or danger. I'm talking about those things that might emotionally scare you or mentally, scare you. Like, I will run towards those things because that's where growth happens. Get Emily's Alexa from the white bench and plug it in for her. Thank you. Inside the white bench. Give me a minute. That makes sense? So again, because if we're not careful, we will find ourselves in the fear loop. You all know what the fear loop is. I know you do. We've all experienced it. What's the fear loop? Go plug it in for her. No, not tonight. What's the fear loop? You got a fear loop. The fear loop says, I come up with a goal. I think about a good idea. I get some type of goal. And then immediately after I think about the goal, there is an internal fear response. And that internal fear response is like, I don't know if I can do it. I'm not sure if I'm good enough. I'm big enough. I'm smart enough. I'm fast enough, right? And then that internal fear response leads to negative thought spiral. So you then start to fall down that negative thought spiral, telling yourself all the things that are going to go wrong or that you will not be able to achieve. And then that then leads to avoidance behavior. That leads to avoidance behavior, which then reinforces the trigger next time you have a goal. It's the same thing. And so it's this fear, they call it the fear loop, because ultimately we avoid the things that we are scared of. And whenever you are in this negative thought spiral, you experience a loss of momentum. And when you lose momentum because you lose confidence. And when you lose momentum, you slow down, you get stuck, and you stop. And so what this rule says, this rule that governs, what this says is fear is a compass. That if I have an idea to pursue something and I feel an immediate internal fear response, rather than that fear response resulting in a negative thought spiral, which then leads to avoidance behavior, I'm going to interpret that internal fear response as a compass leading me in the right direction, that this thing really should be the thing I go after. It really should be the thing that I pursue. It really should be the thing that I embrace courage and lean into courage. This rule, fear is a compass, leads into another rule that simply says, I will always have a bias toward action. What does that mean? Anita, what does that mean? Fiona, what does that mean? Yeah. Don't wait. Start, learn, adjust. My default is going to be movement. Now, this is hard for me because I'm a thinker. I'm an overthinker. So I don't have a bias toward action. I have a bias towards processing. Let me think on that. Let me process. All right? Let me think on that. No, I will have a bias toward action, right? My default is going to be movement, right? I want to think about the MVP. You all may be familiar with MVP, minimal viable progress. What is the minimal viable progress I can take today in light of this idea? And what we learn is that when we have a bias towards action, that as a result of that bias towards action, clarity follows action. I should write a book about this. This is good. I'm receiving it. I don't know if anybody else receiving it. I'm receiving it. Yes, Ed, what you got? 100%. Yep. Yep. Right. Right. Yo, I think I said this to y'all last week. I think I said this to you last week. This leads to another rule, and this rule says God will plan. No, God has a plan for me, but God will not plan for me. Therefore, I will plan. God has a plan for me. I know the thoughts I have towards you, saith the Lord. God has a plan for you, but God will not plan for you. So you got to be the one to plan to sell your house, Anita, right? You got to be the one to plan to get up and go to the gym, Jason, right? You got to be the one to plan to fill out the grant, right, Edward? Like, you got to be the one. Like, God has a plan for you, but he will not plan for you, right? And so therefore, rule number 7, I will always have a plan. Proverbs 16, verse 9, I think it is. Many are the plans of a man's heart, but the Lord directed his steps, or like the Lord's purposes prevail, right? Many are the plans of a man's heart, but the Lord's purposes prevail. So yeah, I'm always going to have a plan, and all thy ways acknowledge him. He'll direct thy path. I will have a plan because I know that God will not plan for me. I got to get up and I got to do the work and I got to have a plan. And as I'm executing on my plan, the promise is he will bless the works of my hands. Right? He don't bless the thoughts of our mind. He blesses the works of our hands. Your steps will be ordered, not your thoughts will be ordered. Right? Your steps will be ordered. Right? So all of this is simply to help you think about what are the rules that I want to govern my life. My life, not my moral life, right? Your moral life is like, thou shalt have no other gods before me, and don't steal and don't cheat. And like, okay, yeah, we got the Holy Spirit for all of that, right? I'm not talking about your moral life. I'm not talking about your spiritual life. I'm talking about what are the rules that are going to govern how you show up to accomplish the things that God has put on your heart? What are the principles of execution that you need to fall back on? Because once you establish them as rules, what that then says is, whether I feel like it or don't feel like it, this is a rule that I live my life by. So I then can remove my feelings and remove my emotions from the equation. I said I was going to work out 5 days this week. I said I was going to work out 7 days this week. I don't feel like getting up and going. But bottom line is I keep 100% of my commitment. So if I committed to myself that I was going to do this, right, then I've got to do this. There's no negotiation. That's what Kobe Bryant says. I do not negotiate with myself. Okay. Yeah. 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 The week that you took off, we're going to call that a Sabbath. You don't have to go hard all the time. In fact, it's not sustainable for you to go hard all the time. That's why you have this thing called sleep, where you work for what, 16 hours, and then you rest for 8 hours. So even in your 100% of my commitments, you can say to yourself, hey, I'm going to send a devotion every day for the next 30 days, and then I'm going to take a week off. Hey, I'm going to work out for 7 days a week for the next 3 weeks, and then I'm going to take 3 days off. Right? You should create in your life rhythm. You should create Sabbath. You should create vacations. You should create margin, right? Create buffer. So that in the event that, like, okay, yeah, I know, I can see the finish line. The finish line is, in 2 days, in 15 days, in 20 days. And I'm going to go hard for 20 days, and I'm going to take a week off. Now, if that week turns into 2 weeks and 3 weeks, then we got to really come back to, okay, why was this goal, why was this commitment there in the first place? Which there's nothing wrong with shifting commitments. Like if you say, man, I'm really committed to, accomplishing this goal A, and then as you are journeying along, you realize, man, I'm really just not passionate about goal A. Like you're learning things about yourself, you're getting feedback from other people. It's not really something you want to pursue. Like it's okay to quit. Right? But when you're quitting based off of a clear understanding that whatever it is you are pursuing is no longer a priority, a goal of yours, not because you failed or you're tired or you're discouraged or for any of those reasons. We will use those reasons as excuses to quit. And what I'm saying is if you decide to abandon a goal or to sunset, retire, or quit a goal, that's fine as long as you understand very clearly why you are quitting that goal. And that your motivation for quitting isn't based off of fear, shame, or guilt. That's what we want to avoid, that at all costs. Now, a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, we talked about the valley of despair, how you'll get into the valley of despair. And when you get into that valley of despair, I think it's in the book, one of the chapters, you get into that valley of despair and then you realize, well, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. So let me abandon this goal and to come up with a new goal. We want to avoid that. And you mentioned already, man, having a community, having a coach, having clarity, surrounding yourself with accountability. All of those things are helpful as we are moving towards our goal, But so it's all right if we realize, you know what, I need to take a step back or I need to reevaluate what's really important to me during this season. But as long as it's based off of an awareness of what's happening and not a response, an emotional response to discouragement or frustration. How does that land? Cheers. I receive it, man. we all in this thing together. So, thoughts, questions. SJ, thoughts. Anita, thoughts. Fiona, questions. Makes sense. What would be a few rules that you can think of even right now that would be relevant for where you are? Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Anyone
Anyone
else?
else?
Thoughts?
Thoughts? Jason, what are you thinking? Yeah. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me? Okay. Anita, thoughts, questions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I this is a response to, and earlier today I was just kind of doodling and noodling in my own notebook here, and I was like, man, we all want certain results. We have a result that we're going after. And I said to myself, and in order to get that result, we got to execute. There's no way of getting around it, right? Jason, you got to execute. I need to got to execute, right? Like Edward, Fiona, we got to execute. Like that is it. The issue is we our ability to execute is largely determined by our energy levels. That's is our energy, right? So when I feel like executing, I will execute, right? And our energy, and I wrote it right here in my notebook. You can't see it. I said our energy is determined by how well we slept, our overall physical health, our diet and nutrition, our mental and emotional state of being, right? All of those things go into our energy levels. And then layered on top of that, there's like this element of, well, if I find myself distracted, or if I'm always comparing myself to other people, or if I have these negative thought patterns of fear, shame, and guilt, I'm not good enough, that affects my mental, emotional well-being, right? I'm going to be harder on myself. The judge and my saboteur is firing away. And so as a result, I'm going to always have this low mental state of mind. I'm not going to feel alive. I don't feel like I'm leaning into life. I feel like I'm leaning out of life. That's going to affect my energy. I'm going to wind up staying up late, watching movies till 2 o'clock in the morning, not getting good sleep, eating junk food, highly processed foods. Nutrition is going to be off. Don't want to work out. So it's like, so everything kind of revolves around our mental state of mind, right? A fish rots at the head. So it is your life and my life rot from the thoughts that we think. And so I just started wrestling with, man, how do I manage my thoughts in a way where I don't care how I feel or what I'm thinking, here is the baseline of what I am going to do. I will complete my commitments. I will stay in the gap and not the gain, right? I will seek feedback relentlessly. I will use fear as a compass. I will always have a bias toward action. I will always have like coming up with a set of no more than 4 or 5 total, right? The more you have it, then it dilutes them. It dilutes their impact. So what are the 3 to 5 core rules that I can write down, remind myself, make them the screensaver on my phone, something that will jolt me out of low energy? low mental state of being. That's where this session was birthed out of. Fiona, I see your thoughts. Oh, at the airport. Yes. Create rhythm of following through by creating small goals each week. Muscle memory will be achieved. Mantra hold to what I commit myself to. Apply mantra to daily goals. Yes. Yep. Yep. So it could be one thing. It could be three things. It could be five things. I wouldn't suggest more than five. I mean, God gave us 10, and we jack that up all the time. So I say let's say it with five. No more than five. Right? Nice. Nice. Jason put his in the chat. Say it, do it. Measure the miles, not the missing. I like that. No solo seats. I build while I break bread. Growth happens in good company. Protect the yes. I guard my time and energy like my life depends on it because it does. Lead me first. I can't lead others if I'm not leading myself. Rested, focused, and clear. Excellent. Man, drop that thing into Canva, get it printed, take it to Vistaprint, print it off, put it as a poster on your wall in the corner. So it's a daily reminder, right? Make that thing your phone screenshot and rock with it. Rock with it. All right. Questions, thoughts, comments. So action items. Sometime over the weekend, start thinking about it. What are 2 or 3 rules that you want to try out? And try them out for a week. Try them out for a month. You don't have to try them out forever, right? So you know what? What's a governing rule, right? And if you don't like the word rule, come up with a principle. Right? What's the governing principle that's gonna govern my life? Figure it out. Try it on. And then go with it. So come Sunday, we will be on Sunday. Would love for you to share 1 or 2 that you've kind of thought about, wrestled with, and feel like you wanna rock with. Yes, that's a t-shirt. Each one of those could be a t-shirt. Each one of those could be a t-shirt. That's excellent. All right. Any questions, thoughts, comments? We're good? We're good. SJ, we're good. All right, you got strong internet now, man. You stay side. The Wi-Fi is you got that 5G. All right, wonderful. Well, listen, have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you Sunday morning. I love you. Continue to press into what God has put in your heart. And if anything comes up, feel free to always shoot me a text. All right? Have a good night, everyone. Bye.